Coming up on Gamers Week podcast.
Next up, Jackass star Steve-O was paid $100,000 for appearing in the Sega-published American football game NFL 2K5, alongside Carmen Electra, David Arquette, Funkmaster Flex, and Jamie Kennedy.
There are quite a few people out there that are 2K purists when it comes to football games. But when you're reading off this list of celebrity coaches, this is the who's who.
Who's who of the early 2000s.
Right. Carmen Electra, David Arquette, Funkmaster Flex, and Jamie Kennedy. All those people have, great prolific careers nowadays.
That it reads like a 90s celebrity list, but they were available in 2005.
And if you go and watch a show or a movie on like TNN or TNT rather, they filter it out instead of Jesus Christ. It's cheese and rice.
Yeah.
I remember, that movie Space Camp?
Yes.
So
with Joaquin Phoenix.
Right. Little Joaquin Phoenix. So that movie I think is PG-13, but they edited like a G version. And of course, I went to the Christian school, so they showed the G version, but they didn't bother trying to substitute in words. They just cut them out. So the movie was just so choppy and full of all these awkward jump cuts.
Like, what the hell happened?
I feel like I'm missing something.
They're in space now?
And then years and years later, I saw the real one. I was like, this is so much better.
I loved that movie. We used to play that movie all the time. We had a VHS for it. Tom Skerritt. Mm-hmm. And who else?
It's Wish.com.
Wish.com.
Well, let's Google that. Wish.com.
Tom Selleck.
Yes. Wish.com. Tom Selleck.
I was like, wait for it. It's Tom.
And what's her name? She was in Inner Space. Not Inner Space. Sorry. Dreamscape. There's Leah Thompson as well.
Yep, Leah Thompson, young Leah Thompson.
Kate Capshaw. Like Kate Capshaw was hot in a movie called Dreamscape.
Is that Travolta's wife?
Yeah, it is. I was just trying to remember her name.
Yeah. Travolta's wife.
Kelly Preston.
There we go. Yeah. Kelly Preston. I had the hots for Kelly Preston.
Same here.
From that movie.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. All right. Let me know when we're good.
We are good. There we are.
And there we are.
Yeah.
We're live.
You have to say it so as not to disappoint Sam Disfact in the chat.
All right. Well, welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, the worst, and the weirdest headlines in the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 125, and today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. My name is Ryan, aka retrogamebrews, and I will be your host for this evening, but I am not alone. I've got two fantastic folks with me. First of all is a woman who looks forward to the day that nanobots will take over her life functions so she can be nothing but a severed head that lives forever. Blue Williams. Blue, how you doing today?
Because I'll have like Elon's chip in my head so I can still play games. So
Ooh.
You got Neuralink, you got nanobots. Yeah, man.
We're good to go. I'll finally, when I don't have to do anything else because I'm just a severed head, I'll finally catch up with that backlog.
There you go.
Have all the time in the world.
Yep.
And I also have with me a man who is helping me join the Mile Club, one pixel at a time. Donnie G, how you doing today?
The Mile Club?
Mile High Club.
Oh, I didn't hear. Blue, did you hear Mile High?
No, he said Mile Club. But
I meant Mile High. You should be in my brain. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, based on our conversation from yesterday, I was like, I know what he's trying to say.
Do you want to provide any context for the audience, Donnie?
Oh, See, the light bulb hit. I was like, what the f*** is he talking about? Oh, well, okay. So there's apparently an adult game on Steam. And I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But
Sex Airlines.
Sex Airlines. There you go. I am a captain of the Sex Airlines. And it's a full-on, like, porn game.
You see things.
Yeah, you see a lot of things. And I'm like, are people actually playing this? And the answer 100% is yes. I myself have never played it. I don't know if I would ever play something like that. I know Ryan sure would, because he's the connoisseur of, and I wish I had some witty name for it. I don't, but he is the porno game connoisseur. So I expect him to play it and give us a good review.
Right now, it's sitting at 1,298 reviews currently for the game, and they're very positive, according to Steam.
All right. I think we should all check it out.
Because it's a visual novel, I'm sure it has a really engaging story. That's probably where the reviews are coming from.
We're going to stream it, but since I don't think there's any audio in it, we all have to read the different characters in a funny voice.
And the sound effects and everything.
Of course, of course.
At least with it being a visual novel, the pages won't stick together.
All right. So on that note, let's go ahead and jump into our reviews, reactions, and requests. First off, from Kittensoft, I only play about one game a month, and at that rate, Game Pass prices are rising. It'll be cheaper to buy them on Steam. I'll be canceling once my current gift card expires. I got to say, if you're only playing one a month, you're right. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, for sure. At Denden66PX says, I'll say this about the subscription service. I'm grateful it exists because they keep the gaming industry afloat when budgets are spiraling out of control and no way to recuperate by actual sales. Prices go up because everything that enables the service becomes more expensive. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but that's actually kind of a good point. So,
yeah. I love when we have comments that say, give a perspective from both sides.
For sure. And finally, from @Chrysolite_Stone says, who wants to play? Who wants to be a millionaire?
And that's something that Regis Philbin would probably say on the show to the contestants. Who wants to play? Who wants to be a millionaire?
That was a decent Philbin impression.
That was very good. Well done.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we go ahead and shout out our patrons?
We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. Frank Gonde, Love Retro BTW, Steven Sand, Ramboski, Terry Kinnear, Doogie Forever, Agil 2020, Ducks in Disguise, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Sir Coffee of House Blend, first of his name, Hybrid Divide, Matto1606, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, The Red Ox, PDX Family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Number One, Blue, Sick Boys Fan, John Baron, Sassy Sony, Evo Lust, Rai, Secret Best Friend, Mega Retro Man, Gamatroid, Mora Deep, Michael LeKite, Emo-esque, Bill Tucker, The Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcakes Pickled Pepper, Ducks with Thick Thighs, Wizard of Zardoz, Bobson Dugnut, Loudmoth, Retro Blast Pat, B&T Zilla Guy, The Mad Milkman, Seven Castle Forest, Crunchy Kong, and Sheriff Snacks. If you like what you heard today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You'll also gain access to our bi-weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
Why don't we go ahead and take a look at our headlines for the week? And this headline segment is sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. And right now, they want to know, what are the best games for the Atari Lynx? Send your answers to email@retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes.
GoldenEye in chat says California games.
Okay.
I have never played nor even seen in real life an Atari Lynx, so I cannot answer this.
I owned one earlier this year that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace for about $150 with like 6 games, all the manuals and all that stuff. I ended up selling it because I was never going to play it. I'm not a handheld person. If I were to be, then my Game Boy shelf would be getting some love. But the Atari Lynx? Yeah, no.
No handheld love from Donnie. Surprises me a little.
It was like the Lynx was trying to one up the Game Gear at like the wrong time.
Yeah,
it seemed like.
If you looked at the screen for the Lynx versus the screen for the Game Gear, it might seem like they were both the same size, but to me, it seemed like the Game Gear was a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like the Game Gear, from like a ergonomic standpoint, like the buttons were placed right. It felt like it was a controller, versus the Lynx had these weird side buttons that went out in like an angle, if memory serves me right. And it's almost like you had to hold it like this, like with your arms all cocked out. So
you game, bro?
You look like an idiot. Hey guys, I got this.
Yeah, with the other two, like with the Game Gear and the Game Boy, you could hold them in close so nobody could see what game you're playing or whatever, and just like be buried into the thing. But yeah, the Atari Lynx is just like,
well, you had to be buried into the thing just so you could see the damn screen.
Yeah, if you didn't have the light.
Even if you had the light, it didn't really help.
The light in the magnifying glass. Mm. All right, let's start off with the week's quick takes. Nintendo's mysterious Emio teaser isn't a full-blown horror game after all, but the first new Famicom Detective Club game in 35 years. In the game, a student has been found dead with a paper bag over his head, with an eerie, smiling face drawn over it. This is the mark of a notorious legendary urban killer, Emio, and it's your job as an assistant to a private investigator to crack the new murder case. Emio, the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, launches next month on August 29th for the Nintendo Switch. And by show of hands, who is severely disappointed?
Yeah, 3 hands up here. Imagine those watching are doing the same. But I mean, this could not have been more disappointing. We were all so hyped, not just us, but like the collective internet was all so hyped and excited for the possibility that squeaky clean Nintendo could actually be expanding and doing first party games with their first party level of quality and expanding into more mature genres. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out to be something. I think the Detective Club is a visual novel series. I don't know that for sure. Okay. I will give them this, though. If you wanted to generate hype for a 35-year-old visual novel series that probably most people in the West haven't even heard of, this was the way to do it, even if after they find out what it really is, everybody just shakes their head and walks away.
Right. The thing about this, too, is it just continues my already solid in stone sentiment that Nintendo will always kind of disappoint me somehow. I was so excited for this idea. My thoughts swirling in your head based off of that 20-minute trailer. It was like, oh, it's going to be like Dead by Daylight. It's going to be like, Silent Hill. And
there were all those rumors this week because Bloober Team said they're working on something for Nintendo. Where it's like, oh, is Bloober Team making the Emio game? No.
I can't wait for this to come out, though. And just, I don't know, see people play this and see where it goes, right? After all of that hype, after that 20-second trailer that had so much promise, I want to see what Nintendo thought was going to be a good idea with this marketing plan.
It's the old bait and switch, They're like,
100%.
Let's drop this thing, and everybody's like, ooh, it's super scary. And we talked about this last week. Super scary? Are you new here? That doesn't do anything. That doesn't make me cower in fear and piss my pantsuit. I've never even heard of this thing. Just like Samtis is saying, I've never heard of this franchise. Come on, Nintendo, just do it once. Just step out of your comfort zone. Do something like Sex Airlines or whatever. Or
first party Sex Airlines with Nintendo's level of quality.
With the circle seal, not the oval seal, the circle seal quality. All right, next up, the International Olympic Committee has announced that the inaugural edition of the Olympic Esports Games will take place in Saudi Arabia in 2025 as part of a 12-year partnership with the country's National Olympic Committee. According to L'Equipe, the organization is in talks with the publishers of Rocket League, Street Fighter, and the biggest esport of all, League of Legends, to include those games. The Olympic esports games may take place every 2 years, with South Korea and the U.S. said to be in discussions to host future installments. Wow, are we there now with like we can have Olympics, like video games are Olympic sports? We're now athletes?
I guess. I'm not an athlete. I'm a mathlete.
Yeah. I remember like when esports actually became a thing and it was getting all the hype and popularity and people were calling themselves like, oh, these athletes. And like, I'm sorry, excuse me. What did you say? Athletes? No. You cannot use that word to define somebody sitting in a chair. Man, bathroom.
Hey, their body is built for performance, okay?
Just like bowlers.
Yeah, there's sports and then there's activities.
This is an activity.
This is an activity, but it's not quite as catchy as calling it esports.
Of course.
But I remember when this was first announced and they were saying they were going to try to find games that were counterparts to actual Olympic sports, cycling, baseball, that kind of stuff. And we were like, that is a terrible idea. Because when you think of esports, you don't think of some golf mobile game. So I'm glad to see these titles that are being considered, and hopefully it will be something that will be actually more in line with the spirit of what esports is as we know it.
Right.
Like Candy Crush in the Olympics.
Well,
I don't know. Isn't there already a lot of esports competitions like this, So what's the point of having it as an Olympic esports games? Because you can get a gold medal? Is that the draw to this? Because they're not including it in the standard Olympics, right? That is abundantly clear. So this is its own thing with the Olympic tag attached to it. Does that bring some additional prestige to it? Because if you really think about it, Olympics happens every 4 years. That's one of the cool parts about this. I don't know if that is, if it's done every year or if it just so happens to be on off years that the Olympics aren't there. I think that takes away from the prestige of this. It's just a branding thing at this point.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about it before when it was first announced that I think the IOC had mentioned that it was an effort to engage young people more with the Olympics. Because I guess kids don't care about the Olympics as much anymore. I don't know. I will say that I think one of the biggest, if that's true, one of the biggest detractors of people actually being interested and engaged with the Olympics is their stupid TV deals with NBC. How you can't even watch it without a subscription now.
Right.
Yeah. So, aren't the Olympics going to be broadcast on Peacock? Or whatever it is, like most of the.
So when families can't sit down together and watch the Olympics like they used to, then you are going to see people stop being interested. I haven't watched. I don't know since they stopped being free. I haven't watched.
I think the last Olympics, it was still on major networks. But you're right, if it requires me to have a subscription to Peacock. Which they're gonna get people that'll pay for the month subscription or whatever just to watch the Olympics, but I'm done with that stuff. I didn't like it whenever they did one of the playoff games on Peacock or something like hey, we're not going to show that on regular TV. We're going to show it on Peacock. If that's the way you want to go now, and it seems like that's what's happening with all of these different sports places like football, or basketball, baseball. All this stuff. They're like, hey, you have to have this other new subscription now to watch our stuff. No, thanks. Mm-hmm. I'll just, I'll pirate it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you're going to make it more difficult for me, then I'm going to find a different way to do it. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it out of spite.
Next up, Ubisoft's apology for using a flag from a Japanese historical reenactment group without permission in artwork for Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't good enough, the group has said. Eagle-eyed fans initially noticed the identical recreation of the group's flag in a piece of concept art for the Japan set Assassin's Creed released alongside its full reveal. Ubisoft apologized and said it will no longer use the associated artwork, with one exception, the presumably already printed physical art book. We have asked Ubisoft to remove the image from the collector's edition art book, the group said on Twitter. I'm not sure if this will be possible, but I've contacted Ubisoft through their support. Now, if that art book goes out, that's going to be a collector's item, obviously, because they'll have to stop, they'll have to recall them and all that stuff. And the things that they've already sold to people, they're like, hey, I've got this official art book with this pirated image that they used without the consent of the people that created it. Will that drive up the price? Who knows?
Oh, it definitely will.
In the Collectors Guild, yeah, probably will. Yeah. And I think that this group is doing the good job of going after a corporation that ripped them off. And it's like, hey, I don't care how much it's going to cost you. You're a mega corporation. Right. You don't get to use this. And if you do, then we're going to sue you for even more.
Right. Yeah. No, I think good for this reenactment group because, like you said, a big corporation, they have almost unlimited resources. They hire very talented people, and you couldn't do any better than stealing an image for your artwork. Like right. you couldn't possibly have done better than that. You didn't vet it properly. And you expect to just say, oh, sorry about that, and think that's going to be good enough. No, that's not how the world works anymore. They're not going to recall this book. They're going to be forced to pay them for the use of this image. And that's how it should be.
Ubisoft is the Temu of software developers out there right now, where they will take your content, steal your shit, and make money off of it. And when you tell them, I want you to take it down, they'll say, sorry, and then just use it again.
Games with Coffee says, another week, another moment, Ubisoft tries to overtake EA as the worst gaming company.
They're fighting their way down to the bottom.
And winning sometimes.
Next up, a new game in the Double Dragon series of beat-em-ups is coming next year. Arc System Works has announced Double Dragon Revive, which promises to revisit some of the locales and enemies from the earliest entries in the series. Revive, however, has a decidedly modern look to it, with 3D models rather than simpler sprites. The name Revive is in line with what the developers say they want it to be. The same simple and intuitive gameplay with controls and balance refined for the modern era. Double Dragon Revive will be developed by Yuke? What the hell is a Yuke? Who are better known in the U.S. for making the WWF, then WWE, then AEW wrestling games. And I once knew somebody who got 50,000 points on Double Dragon.
You got 50,000?
I don't know. You guys excited about the Double Dragon Revive?
Meh.
I was hoping it was going to be more like that Final Fight Revive that they did a few years back, where it was all in 3D and it was the craziest game that's ever been created, in which you're violently murdering people on these quests that you're a part of, as well as taking drugs, which is fantastic. So,
how else are you supposed to keep going?
Right. Do a little bump.
Or make it as bad as the Double Dragon movie that came out in the 90s. Ooh. One of the two.
I don't know if I could stomach that.
But, you know, it is the era of revitalizing old IPs to capitalize on them. This isn't going to be like a huge seller. I guarantee you that. It's not going to be, you know, your latest AAA game. But more than likely, this is tailored towards our crowd. Right?
Of course.
Yes. But then, like, why didn't they do a retro style beat 'em up? Like, have been super popular, unless they just didn't want to follow that trend. But
that's the thing. You don't want to follow the trend because they did it with Streets of Rage. They did it with Shredder's Revenge, which it still sold well. And I think there's another one that's coming out that they're doing it with. I've seen the images and the gameplay of the Double Dragon Revive. It looks pretty badass, especially with the 3D models. So to say that I'm excited about it is an understatement because it looks so damn cool. You could remake pretty much most of the classic beat 'em ups like Golden Axe and, like they did with Streets of Rage. You could remake all of those in today's age with the modern sprites and all that stuff. And I would buy it hand over fist. But they're trying something new here with the 3D like Final Fight did. And this looks absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to pick this up.
Gonna get your action with some Bimmy and Jimmy?
Yes, I am. I'll be sandwiched right in the middle.
I'm the meat between this Bimmy and Jimmy sandwich.
Have you guys played any of the Ukes?
No, because I'm not a big fan of wrestling immediately.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Me neither.
I have not played any of them, although they've looked amazing. It's just I don't want to go out and spend the $60 on a wrestling game when I can probably pick it up for $5 somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and I remember years back the WWE game that they had come out was just like a train wreck of just bugs and stuff.
I think so.
I don't know if it was Uke that did that, but I remember people complaining left and right that it was just so incomplete and your game would crash. It was almost like that boxing game. They had that Rocky game that where like you could fall through the floor, right? Like not quite to that level, but at least if it reminds you of that, that's not a great sign. So
no,
yeah, it's been a while. I think Saturday Night Slam Masters was the last time I played a wrestling game.
Okay,
on console.
I played a couple that were on the PS2, but I could never get over the quality of games like WWF No Mercy, WrestleMania 2000, NWO versus WCW Revenge. Those to me were the pinnacle of wrestling games back in the day. And then I really hadn't gotten to any since. There are a couple others that came out like on the Xbox One, the PS3 that looked amazing, but I don't know if they had the same kind of controls that the THQ games for the N64 had. And I really love those.
Right. And it's funny that system seemed to be made for wrestling games because you just named off 3 of the biggest wrestling games of all time still in one system.
Yep. The only good part of the N64.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to be nice today.
I did it for you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jackass star Steve-O was paid $100,000 for appearing in the Sega-published American football game NFL 2K5. Speaking to GameSpot, Steve-O said he was paid exactly $100,000 for appearing as a celebrity coach alongside Carmen Electra, David Arquette, Funkmaster Flex, and Jamie Kennedy. Only a picture and the voice of these celebrities was used as players chose to compete against them. NFL 2K5, which starred wide receiver Terrell Owens on its cover, was the last of Sega's football franchise, which rivaled EA's Madden NFL in the early 2000s. It was well received, though, earning a 9 out of 10 in IGN's review from 2004 and launched for only $20 compared to the standard and Madden price of $50 for PlayStation 2 and Xbox games.
There are quite a few people out there that are 2K purists when it comes to football games. And it's like this, it seems like it was a travesty that Sega was no longer producing the 2K games. But when you're reading off this list of celebrity coaches, this is the who's who.
Who's who of the early 2000s.
Right. Carmen Electra, David Arquette, Funkmaster Flex, and Jamie Kennedy. All those people have, great prolific careers nowadays.
That it reads like a 90s celebrity list, but they were available in 2005. So people. the thing that I thought was interesting about this is that's $100,000 to be a still talking head in the game back 20 years ago. So $100,000 20 years ago. But the NCAA game that's releasing this week, those kids are getting paid $500.
Man, you're twisting the knife on those kids.
I know, right? $500 in 2024 money, just not so much.
And with all those celebrities, most of them, where that $100,000 went. Pretty much.
Or up their butts. Take your pick.
Depends on what you're into.
Right. Yeah. We don't kink shame here.
Next up, Sega has announced that it has taken legal action against an individual committing consistent harassment against one of its employees. In a post on its Japanese corporate site, Sega explained that it had been in contact with the individual in question for some time, but after the harassment had not improved, the firm was forced to take legal action. Sega also states that it will continue to take similar matters seriously, describing the current case as a serious human rights issue that damages the dignity of employees and deteriorates the work environment. The end result is a settlement in which damages will be paid to Sega on behalf of the employee. The individual perpetrating the harassment will be required to delete any instances of slander or insults while ensuring that no further acts are committed in the future. Yes, Samtis fact, Sega is in the news. Yay! But not how we want them to be.
Yeah.
Sort of. Because you think about the last, 4 or 5 years and the amount of harassment that has gone on from game fans towards developers.
Mm-hmm.
Death threats towards developers, towards voice actors playing a role. And it's just a free-for-all on these people who are just doing their job. People feel that they have the right to express themselves way beyond the point of anything that's acceptable.
Yeah.
It's nice to see that there actually can be consequences.
Now, there's some language here that I'm curious. It says the end result is a settlement in which damages will be paid to Sega on behalf of the employee.
Yeah, that's the second part.
Okay.
Where you're like, is the employee getting that?
Right. Are they having to pay their employer because someone was harassing them?
If
that's the case, that's nuts.
Yeah. Maybe it was because Sega ponied up for the lawyers.
Okay.
So Sega has to be paid back, and then maybe the employee will get more of it. I don't know, but
the employee gets $1.50, and Sega itself gets $40 million.
Yeah, no. We'll get you a pizza lunch at work.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks,
So
Sega.
we splurged for Coca-Cola, not Pepsi this time.
Oh.
Always Coca-Cola.
And we splurged for Domino's instead of Little Caesars.
Ah, very
Oh,
good.
wow. You know my heart.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting to see if this creates a precedent for the kind of stuff that we've reported a few times over the past couple of years.
It should already have been a precedent with the amount of cyberbullying and everything like that takes place. People should be held accountable for their words, not just spoken, but also typed online. And I am an advocate for free speech, but there comes a time when a consistent harassment it's unacceptable. And we see that, I think, pretty much on a daily with people on websites like Twitter or X, where you can block a person. They come back with a new account. They keep harassing you. They keep talking shit. Mm-hmm. Block them. They come back with it, and it just gets freaking tiring.
And I'm assuming that this went to a pretty high level if they're taking this amount of action. And to your point as well, I'm a big fan of free speech. I think you are free to say whatever it is that you want to say. You're just not free from the consequences of that action.
Exactly.
So it's a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if necessarily this is the best way or the right answer to handle this type of problem, but I think it's a step at least in the right direction.
Yeah.
Where we're holding folks accountable rather than just saying, we hope this goes away, right?
Right.
Well, and without knowing the details, just from this amount, I think it's nice to see that Sega is standing up for their employee. Mm-hmm. They must have been a pretty valuable employee if you assume their work was effective, because that's specifically mentioned. So if their work was affected and Sega just didn't go, we're letting you go deal with your problems somewhere else because you're not putting in the work. If Sega said, this employee is valuable enough that we want them back at the top of their game, so we need to deal with this.
Right.
Agreed.
But that should be equal regardless of your impact to the organization.
You'd think so, but I think a lot of
I'm sure
corporations wouldn't go to bat like that for just any employee.
Unless they paid for the legal services through their insurance by paying $42 a pay period.
Which I have that option with my company. I can participate in their legal services and whatnot. Not that I cross my,
Yeah, how are you planning on needing those?
Yeah, I don't plan on ever needing it, but if, something happens, then I'd be in the clear.
If you do that, do they have the right to say, nah, man, you're super guilty. We're not going to.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's not like you can just go kill somebody and like, hey, I got your legal services at my disposal, right? No.
No, yeah.
It's like that guy from the movie Role Models where he's like, I didn't do it. He's like, sir, there's video of you. And he's like, look, and he's like, that could have been anybody. And you watch the video and he's like, look at me. I'm Dave. I'm stealing all these TVs.
That's stupid.
I mean, just saying.
And last but not least, with this week's Quick Takes, you can now grab Deadpool's butt with this new Xbox controller. Microsoft revealed a Deadpool and Wolverine inspired controller that's business in the front, party in the back. The one-of-a-kind controller is textured with Deadpool's red and black leather costume and features extra support on the backside, wink, with shapely recreations of Wade Wilson's cheeks. Unfortunately, only one person will ultimately have the honor of gripping the anti-hero's specialty controller, as it's a prize in a sweepstakes competition rather than a purchasable product. Boo! Other prizes include a Deadpool-themed Xbox Series X console and a stand for the console with foam replicas of the Mercenaries' swords. That looks badass.
It does. And I'm in love with the idea that you can squeeze on Ryan Reynolds' bum.
Retro in the chat says, I hope the back is squishy. Wink.
Me too. Me too. Or it rumbles and just that part jiggles. That would be amazing.
Yeah, but you get it going too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's made out of like the same stuff that they put in like stress balls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let go. Let go.
And then pretty soon people are spending a creepy amount of time with their controllers.
Why do you have the controller underneath the covers?
I told you not to come in my room when I'm playing Deadpool. So I love this. This is quintessential Deadpool, just humor, right? They have done a lot of really great things with that franchise since they got rid of it just being Wade Wilson and turned it into its own thing. And the humor is right on cue with the actual character. And there's just this extra additional flair of just funny and cheeky, no pun intended, humor. That's like overly sexualized, and it's perfect. And I love it. And I think we need more stuff like this in life. We need to stop being so serious and just have some fun with this. I will be entering the sweepstakes because also I recognize that as somebody who collects things, that Tucker's going to be worth a lot of money someday.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it will.
I would put that up for sale so fast.
Do you think you could get $1 million for it?
From the right person?
Yeah, if you got it signed by Ryan Reynolds, absolutely.
Ooh.
That would be a great way to get his attention, too.
Like, hey, I've got the one controller.
Yeah, message him just like, hey, will you sign this?
We should hang out, man.
It's got your ass on it.
GoldenEye, I'm grabbing the popcorn bucket whenever the movie comes out. I think there's a Deadpool one and a Wolverine one. I would like to get the Wolverine one for no specific reason and slather it with butter.
Donnie's going to be a Hugh Jackman.
No, retro, we don't believe you're a weirdo. We don't kink shame here. If you actually want to keep it, and I think I'd probably hold on to it for a little bit and let the bidding war go up, and not just take the first offer. Because anybody is a Deadpool fan, a mega Deadpool nerd, whatever. They're like, oh, I got to have that. All right, $2 million? Sure. $3 million? Okay, so he's saying $400. $400 million.
I think I'd hit while the Deadpool iron is hot, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Once the movie's been out a few months and the hype dies down, your price is going to go down.
That's true.
The question, though, is does it matter if you take it out of the casing or not? I mean, there's only one of them. So if it's sealed or not doesn't really matter because as long as you keep the packaging with it, right? Who cares, right?
Purists, they care.
Purists? Well, F the purists, there's only one, so it doesn't matter, right? You're still going to get the same product.
Same product, but
there's
not
only
pristine.
one. There's only one.
It's been touched. It's been soiled by your greedy hands.
And not just my hands.
All right, well, let's move on to our top 3 new releases. First up is Nintendo World Championships NES Edition out on the Switch. Test your speedrunning skills across more than 150 challenging moments from 13 classic NES games. Compete against players around the world online, challenge your friends on the couch, or try to see how far you can push your personal bests. Next is Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus, out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, and PC. Flow gracefully through a colorful, hand-drawn 2.5D action platformer inspired by Japanese folklore. Engage in acrobatic aerial combat, unlock powerful mystical abilities, and explore an interconnected world of myth as you seek to unravel the mysteries of your origin. And then finally, EA Sports College Football 25, out on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. Immerse yourself in authentic, fast-paced college football gameplay with Campus IQ, a suite of features built to deliver wide-open, fast-paced, and uniquely college football gameplay. Test your strategic decision-making with an all-new composure system, player wear and tear, screen shaking, home field advantages, and dozens of diverse playstyles across 134 FPS teams. So out of these three, Ryan, what are you choosing?
I have never played a college football game, and I love Electronic Arts. So sarcastically. Yeah, I am not at all excited for College Football 25, but I get people are into that. It's your thing. I won't knock you. Right. Bowpath of the T Lotus. Looks like a hand-drawn version of Okami a little bit. It's cutesy. I'll give it that. But meh. Which leaves me with the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. Now, yes, I'm fairly certain it's going to be like just another NES remix. But the one added element to this is compete against players around the world online, challenge your friends, all that stuff. I think that is going to be huge. It's going to be fun. I am debating bringing back some of that stuff for RGB High Score and doing live events for it, utilizing the Nintendo World Championships NES edition. So we will see. That would be fun, I think. But I think overall, just for my own unique pleasure as well, I'm going to go with the NWS NES edition. That's right.
Unique pleasure.
Unique pleasure.
Can you describe that unique pleasure?
I can show you.
Oh.
We're waiting.
That's that's Gamers Week After Dark.
We're waiting.
Right. All right. What about you, Donnie?
Unlike Ryan, I have played a college football game, but it was all the way back in the Sega Genesis back in the 90s. For whatever reason, it was like maybe a couple minutes. It was like, eh. But aside from that, I don't care about most modern sports games. I don't get to NHL, MLB, or Madden or anything like that. And I hate college football. So not going to play this one. Clutch the pearls. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus looks cool. It's given me a little bit of Hollow Knight vibes, but not as dark. So platformer, I guess, a little bit. I think I would be interested in playing this. But the one that I'm picking up this week that I actually have on order that I just got notification that's being shipped today is the Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. The only conundrum I have is, do I want to open it or just put it on the shelf? But if Ryan is going to be doing, the challenges and stuff like that, and if I can't buy it as a digital thing on the Switch, then I'm going to be forced to open it up and make it lose some of its monetary value. But that's the one I'm picking this week, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition.
Couldn't you just do like the collector's standard mode of operation and buy two?
I could have, but I didn't at the time. I just bought one.
Are they limited edition or something? Can you not get another?
I don't know.
No, but there is a big collector's edition that you could purchase that you could open, or you could leave that one unopened.
That's the one I bought.
Oh, you bought the collector's
okay.
edition.
Now I understand it. I was like, what's the big deal? Open it.
So if they have just like a regular version, I'll just go out and buy that one.
A digital download. There you go.
Retro says, wait, you actually play games? I can't imagine taking them down from the shelf.
Blue, what about you? What are you picking this week?
So EA Sports College Football 25. I, too, do not play sports games, whether retro or modern, but I will say that the hype surrounding this game is intense and it looks really, really good. And I, unlike Donnie, love college football. So I don't know if this would be the game that would get me into sports games. Probably not. But I think I'm going to watch some gameplay of it and watch some streams. And who knows? I am open to the idea. Moving on to Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. This is not for me. I really don't care. I know. I have never been that interested in speed running. So I'm not going to do this. How much was it? Just the standard edition of it?
I don't know.
Anybody know? No. I would say if it's not a full price game and Ryan was doing an RGB high score, which by the way, this is a great idea because then you know that everyone's score is legit.
Right?
Right? If it's cheap, I'll pick it up so that I can participate in the RGB high score. But other than that, I'm probably not going to do it. Bo Path of the Teal Lotus. So I actually supported this game on Kickstarter 2 years ago. Squid Shock Studios. And what interested me in it is it does look an awful lot like Hollow Knight with kind of an Okami style art to it, a little bit of like watercolor kind of coloration to it. It's got kind of a Celeste vibe almost in the way the character moves. And so I was really, really interested in seeing the full version of the game. And I got the sponsorship tier to where I could include a haiku in the game.
What? No way.
Yeah, so I'm interested in exploring the game and seeing if I can find my haiku. I'm really looking forward to it. And I get I'll say a free copy because I was a backer, but of course I paid for it. So I'm going to get it on the Switch soon and very much looking forward to seeing how the real game turned out.
That's awesome. You'll have to let us all know if you find your haiku in the game. That would be pretty cool. Being an actual part of a video game.
Mm-hmm. And the haiku that I submitted was in honor of a very famous moment from Gamers Week Uncut.
Oh.
Uncut, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Which now you have to share next week on the Uncut. So if you want to find out what that is.
Everybody knows it. It's a haiku about Donnie's nipple biting story with the fish. So if you listen to the full show and you hear that the trailer at the end of the show, then you already know the moment.
Fish bit of my nipple.
Yep.
So by proxy, I'm going to be in this video.
Your nipples are anyway.
Yes.
My little nipples went to France. All right, so before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. Show explores the history of video games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. The show is off this week, but there are over 100 episodes on the backlog ready to pleasure your ear holes, such as episode 20 titled War Never Changes, a look at the Bit Wars. So this week's question is, if you could pick one video game character to lead your country into war, who would it be and why? And let Bill know by answering your answer by sending him a tweet at A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter. So,
I don't know. That's tough. That is.
There's a lot of choices I think that might be good, but my immediate thought was Max from Advance Wars. I have utilized Max to win many a game of Advance Wars back in the day. And you know what? He's got a lot of muscle. All of his characters are stronger units. So I feel like, he knows what he's doing as far as things go. Unit. So Max seems to know how to handle war quite well. And I think I'm going to go with Max.
Interesting.
Okay.
Blue?
I was thinking Mario. The reason being is he knows how to motivate people and he knows how to make peace with his enemies. For example, we're always playing Mario Kart and tennis and soccer and baseball with Bowser and all the Koopa characters. So I think world peace is more what we need. And I think Mario is the man for the job.
So basically what you're saying is they just engage in these things like it's the purge, right? So they have to hurt each other in Mario Kart. They have to hurt each other in Smash, right? In order to get the violent tendencies out. And then everything else is harmonious after that. Is that what you're alluding to?
Not really, but we can go with that. See, even after all that he's done, Mario continues to see the best in Bowser and thinks he should be included in the fun things and throws
fireballs and things at him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
I see where you're going with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I don't.
You said you did.
I lied.
What about you, Donnie?
Who do you pick? This is a very broad question, and as I'm scouring my game collection really quickly for a fun answer. I don't know who's got the qualities that I'm looking for that's going to decimate my enemies, as well as the the straight piece, the line piece from Tetris. You put him in the right spot, and he just obliterates everything. He makes everything disappear. So I think I'm voting straight piece in 2024. I want you on my team to lead me into war, and we can just drop the bomb on all of our enemies and sit back, relax, and drink a pina colada.
Do you like pina coladas?
I'm getting caught in the rain.
Thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome back to Professor Rybread's Nostalgia 101. And in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite pastimes as a kid, huddled in dark arenas, sneaking around and surprising unexpected people as I showered them with pulses of light. We'll, of course, be talking about the phenomenon that swept the 90s by storm, laser tag. So before I jump into this, do you guys like laser tag?
Who doesn't like laser tag?
Oh my God.
Who doesn't like laser tag?
As Donnie pulls out a laser tag gun, I love it. Look at this guy. Out of curiosity, what make is that?
It's the Worlds of Wonder. Worlds of Wonder.
Yes. Yes. It seemed like everybody had one of those toys like in the late 80s, right? Where you could buy.
I didn't.
Me neither.
We're going to play the rich kid thing again, aren't we?
If the label fits.
Well, before we jump into laser tag, I'm going to do a little bit of the sciencey stuff. So I do apologize. You can feel free to skip forward for about 3 minutes if you're listening to the audio version and don't want to hear the science. But before we kind of jump into the history of laser tag as well as my experiences with it, I just wanted to provide just a quick and simple explanation of how the technology actually works. Now, this itself is, I will say, a rabbit hole that I could go deep into and talk about for hours.
Please no.
Right? But I'll make it brief, I promise. So the first thing I'm going to say is laser is spelled L-A-S-E-R because it's actually an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emissions of radiation. Yes, Blue, we had to mention that.
Emissions.
Right. That's right. All right, nerd. Now, it's not radioactivity, but believe it or not, visible light is actually a version of radiation. Now, laser light it acts a little differently to normal light. If you turn on a flashlight or a torch, if in the UK, it scatters light in. That's right, not flashlight. It scatters light in almost every direction from the source. But with a laser, it's a concentrated beam of light that can travel for cosmic scale distances with very little degradation. Now, there are many different ways to create laser light, but for our purposes, we're going to talk about LED or light emitting diode lasers because it's what was used in laser tag. By using an LED, it means that the beam will be powerful enough to, say, cut through things, right? Which is good. It's not harmful to your skin, but it actually can be harmful to your eyes. So if you are playing laser tag next time, try to not shoot people in the face. Okay, thanks.
Boring.
Now, the interesting part here is that each laser gun actually contains a small tube inside of the gun itself where an LED is turned on and it sends photons kind of off in every direction. Now, on the both sides of that tube are mirrors that reflect light back and forth. And what you can do is you can actually set up the tube at a particular length down to, the micron to ensure that you're reflecting light waves at the right wavelength. And eventually what that will do is it'll create a stream of light waves that are traveling back and forth at the exact same wavelength. And this amplifies the signal as those photons not traveling in that particular wavelength are essentially cancel each other out. Now, the mirror that's on the side of the tube in which you want to direct your laser is a partial mirror, and it will let a small percentage of light, let's say 15%, And that 15% becomes the beam that we see coming out of a laser. And when you pull the trigger of your laser gun, it will start the process of lasing. And to us, it seems instantaneous, but light is so incredibly fast that all of the things that I just talked about happen within a split second. Now, once you've acquired a target, or usually with a player wearing some sort of pack like Donnie was just a moment ago, those packs actually contain a light sensor that pick up a laser beam as it comes in contact with it. And the way the pack knows who tagged you is because each pack will pulse at different frequencies. And the frequency that is assigned to your gun essentially makes it an identifier for you. So if you got tagged by this many pulses in this very, very short period of time, that means pack 6 was the one who shot you. So there you go. That's just the science stuff. I told you it was going to be brief. It was going to be nerdy. But if you were interested in how it works, there you go. Yeah, well, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you. All right. So now that you understand how laser tag packs work, let's talk about how the game started. Now, the first examples of laser tag were actually developed by the U.S. military as a way to train soldiers for real-life situations with weapons that were not lethal during the 70s and early 80s. The device was called MILES, which was an acronym for Multiple Integrated Laser Engagement System. MILES, I think, is a much better name. But the game that we know today didn't really start until 1982, where a man by the name of George Carter III was mused to create the arena game after watching Star Wars in 1977. And it took him actually 2 years to realize the concept and open his first laser tag center in Dallas, Texas in 1984 under the name Photon Center. And sadly, the business failed during the late 80s and closed in the 1990s. And I'm going to say it has probably a lot to do with the crappy name he picked.
That was probably really cool in the early 80s.
We're going to Photon Center.
Ooh.
Yeah, Photon goes up to a hotel and checks in and says, I said, like to have a room. And he said, any bags? And he said, no, I'm traveling light.
Can I buy you a drink?
We had to have at least a B to understand, like a B grade in science to understand that joke.
And Games with Coffee was laughing, so I think we're doing good.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing. All right. So, laser tag, though, really became a trend that endured with other companies who emulated the technology from George and would, create their own laser tag places. But we saw a huge boom of laser tag places in around the mid 90s, where there was that resurgence of kind of the arcade that we also saw at the same time. Kids were looking for birthday parties. They were looking for opportunities to do fun things at night. There were lock-ins that were available for laser tag places. So a lot of really cool activities based around this one fairly simple game. Now, this is actually where my nostalgia kind of comes into this. I had gone to a place in Rochester called Laser Quest as a kid. Loved it. It was super fun. It was, I believe it's a Canadian-based company, but it was just down the road from me. So it was probably a 4 or 5 minute drive. And I really enjoyed playing the game itself when I was a kid. So I had a lot of fond memories. But interestingly enough, I had a friend who told me one day, hey, I have an interview to work there. They're looking for more people. Do you want to come along? And apparently I wasn't doing much at the time because I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. And so when you get there, you apply to be basically, it's called a game marshal, which essentially means that you're the referee, Marshall. Right? So you're trying to make sure that everyone's being safe and following the rules. The other piece is that you're essentially there as like a hype man at the beginning to try to get people excited about the game while you provide them with instructions and read the rules. Okay. So one of the things you have to be pretty good at is public speaking, which I hadn't had a whole lot of experience up until that point doing public speaking. And one of the things they do is they give you a script, you read through it for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you have to recite it memorized.
Oh, wow.
In front of, the person who's interviewing you. And the funny part is that I got the job and my friend did it.
Talk about your all-time backfires.
Right. Hey, let's invite this guy along and he's going to get the job. Right. But, I had so much fun at that job because what it basically consisted of me was just bringing people back into the one like room where you explain the rules. Then you take them into where they're going to get their packs and get them ready. And then just send them off and walk around the maze yelling things like, don't run in the maze every once in a while just to make sure people knew you were doing your job. And that was about it. And it was fantastic. I enjoyed it every moment of it. And you know what? The other cool part of working in there, too, is that you did a lot of private events and lock-ins. And when that happened, when it wasn't open to the public, that means that you had a chance to play some of the different game modes. And there was an entire book. It was about this thick of different game modes that you could choose from. And it wasn't just like, okay, now we've got teams, like 2 teams playing against each other. There were even things like a mode called Queen Bee, in which one person on your team was selected at random, and they were the Queen Bee, and they had like 3 times as many lives as anybody else on your team. And the whole idea was you protect your Queen Bee while the other team hunts you at the same time of hunting down the other team's Queen Bee. Once that Queen Bee was killed, then round is over, which turned into just some really wild like camping and people like
Lord of the Flies
right
stuff.
Mm-hmm. And humanity degraded in those moments. And then there was another one where they did capture the flag, and rather than having an actual physical flag, they had this little actuator that you would tag on like the opposite end of the arena. It would, light up if you tagged it, but you also had to return back to the main gate in order to essentially capture the flag, right? And if you got tagged in between there, you lost the flag and it went back to the signal. So just a lot of really cool stuff that I ended up experiencing as a result of that. It was a great way for me to kind of hone my skills from a public speaking standpoint. And I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed it so much that if I got paid what I do today to do that job, I would still be doing that job. The reason I brought this up, too, is that recently I looked up what the hours were for Laser Quest, and come to find out this May, Laser Quest shut down in Rochester. So, yeah.
I can't imagine many of those places survived the pandemic.
Yeah, and that's it. I think that's definitely was probably the nail in the coffin. I know that they weren't doing particularly well for years, so not terribly surprising. But man, definitely missed it. I think I'll probably have to go to Canada to get to the closest Laser Quest place, right? The freaking lasers.
Laser beams.
Right. So
they should have had Dr. Evil. Somebody dressed up as Dr. Evil.
I used to have a guy who would dress up in a ninja outfit that would go play at night. And he would also dress up as a Jedi sometimes. But the funny part is you dress up in this ninja outfit, but you're wearing a pack that has flashing lights on it. So that defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
That was how he hyped himself to get ready.
And there was this group of twins that would drive an hour and a half in, and the BO was so bad that you'd have like a little spritz of cologne that you would spray them as you walk by.
That is my main thought, and like my main memory. Besides, like the game was fun, especially when you were a kid. But as you got older, you realized that those arenas smell like meat and socks. And it becomes to the point when you got old enough, you're like, it's not fun enough to overcome like the gag reflex.
Somebody dumped a whole bunch of Parmesan cheese into a sweaty sock.
Oh God, you're the one who gets the after every time, right? Oh my God, thank you for that.
Oh God.
Well, thank you for attending today's Nostalgia 101. Just a reminder, if you have an idea for any story or topic you'd like to hear, send us a message, gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion as long as you're not Donnie talking about Parmesan and socks. All right.
With a sprinkle of blue cheese in it, too.
Oh, stop. All right. So why don't we go ahead and wrap up this episode? Thank you for listening to this episode 125 of Gamers Week Podcast. And a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Love Retro BTW, and A Gamer Looks at 40 for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at Gamers Week PC. Watch us right here on twitch.tv/Gamers Week Podcast, where we record live every Wednesday at 8:30 Central Time. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. And last but not least, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/gamersweek. And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of the episode, please leave us a rating or review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice.
What's the one cheese smell that would just make you retch?
Limburger.
Okay. Oh, I've forgotten all about Limburger. Limburger in a sweaty gym sock. Left outside on a hot summer day.
Oh, it just keeps getting worse by the moment. So glad we brought this up.
With a little bit of dead raccoon sprinkled inside.
The Limburger already smells like dead raccoon.
I don't think it should be left outside on a hot summer day. I think it should be stuck inside the gym locker of your average high school boy and then taken out at the end of the school year.
No, they'll just drown it with Axe.
Yeah, right. They'll just drown it with Axe.
Is that any better? Limburger and Axe? Because they exist together. The axe doesn't cover anything. They just exist side by side.
Oh, my God.
Stings the nostrils.
Very pungent.
Well, on that note, have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, now that everybody wants to never eat again. Have a good night.
Who wants to play? Who wants to be a millionaire? Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VDSTDs things, right? Make you fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
that was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.